When a bank announces 0% interest on deposit, that pension you paid into for the past 20 years isn't enough to retire on. The cost of living makes living almost impossible, and when a job alone just won't cut it, where do you turn? Thousands of people in this country are one or maybe even two paychecks away from poverty. The reality is we are living in a perpetual cycle of earning and spending. Most of what we bring home goes right out of the door, basic living expenses and debt repayment. And for millennials and Gen X and Z, the future is just as bleak. Or is it? Terms like cryptocurrency and fintech or financial technology could be the path to creating tremendous wealth for generations. But it is also one of the best kept secrets for millions of people. Tonight on The Record, we take a look at the new economy for the next generation with some of the best and brightest in the business. Our discussion begins on the other side of this break. Every new season of On the Record, we push the limits, venture into unknown territory, take our cameras into places unseen before. We share the stories and experiences that affect us all. And now it's time for Season 5. On the Record, Thursdays at 8 p.m. on RTV, cable channel 212, and streaming live on Facebook. This is On the Record. I'm your host, Jerome Sawyer. Tonight, our topic is a new economy for the next generation. There are few, if any, sure bets when it comes to finances. We work, plan, save, and literally hope for the best. And many times, our savings are luxury items. But nowadays, there are more options for amassing wealth than probably we even realize. Take, for instance, blockchain technology. For many of us, that's pretty foreign. Well, my guest here has been involved in blockchain technology since 2017 and is a trailblazer in many ways. He's the first and only Bahamian to possess a master's degree in digital and blockchain technology. Through his strong advocacy and accomplishments, he has been selected as the regional ambassador for the Bahamas within the Global Blockchain Business Council. Happy to welcome Michael Clare. He's a certified blockchain expert. So welcome to On the Record.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, Jerome.
So let's talk about sort of your training a bit. You have trained all over the world. Briefly tell us why you decided to pursue this particular path specifically.
So I'm, as you know, I'm finance-based. My bachelor's in economics and finance. My first master's, my MBA, is finance-based as well. And I always was interested in the topic of investing, right? And I always wanted to get into trading. So while I was doing my first MBA out in China, I had a friend who introduced me to cryptocurrency. And at the time, this was when Bitcoin had its very first massive surge, and it went to about 19,000 roughly. And so when I found out about it, I was like, wow, I really missed out, right? And funny story, back in 2014, when I was doing my bachelor's, I had a professor who told me about Bitcoin, and this is at the time when Bitcoin was worth like dollars. And and she was like, if you guys have, some loose money, I can show you guys how to get this thing called Bitcoin. But, being an undergrad, bachelor, student, you're not really,
Every dollar counts.
Right, So
Literally.
You're like, I try to use that money to go buy some tennis or something like that, right? So you're not thinking along those lines.
Right.
But anyway, fast forward to 2017, when I was introduced to it, I found it very interesting because I started to get into Forex trading and stuff along those lines. But it wasn't really sparking my interest for the most part. And then I found out I could start trading in crypto. It has the same aspects apply in terms of chart reading and analysis and things of that nature. So I started to dive a little deeper into it. Bought my first pair of crypto, which was Ethereum at the time. And at the time, the price was about $700 around that time. And I wanted to invest in something called an ICO. And what ICOs are is similar to IPOs, initial public offerings,
right.
But ICOs are initial coin offerings. And you needed Ethereum to invest in these things. So I just bought some Ethereum and put it in that particular project, and the project did pretty well. It had serious returns, close to 1,000x. And when I got my first hit, it became addictive. So that's what made me want to dive even more deeper into it. So as I looked at cryptocurrency from an investment side, and I started to learn more about blockchain technology, the underlying technology, I started to realize its capabilities and the capacities what it can operate in and what it can do and its possibilities. So it became my passion, because when I'm passionate about something, I keep going deeper and deeper, and I want to know all the ins and outs. I want to know how it works from day one, every single thing. So I kept diving deeper and deeper into it. I kept learning whatever online sources, whatever books I could have read. And then I came across a course at the University of Nicosia, which was the university that I got my master's from in blockchain. And they had a free course, and I took the course. And after taking that course, I did so well, they offered me a partial scholarship. Now, this program, it's kind of expensive because it's denominated in euros. It's located in Greece. And what it allowed for me to my advantage was, along with the scholarship, they allowed the option to pay with crypto. And I had a lot of profit at the time, where I just used to use my profit from crypto and pay with crypto. And doing that, it gave me an advantage in terms of, okay, I don't necessarily have to pay all the necessarily bank fees and all the other associated conversion fees with going through the bank. So that more so, my true passion for the tech, understanding what it can really done, and the revolutionary cutting edge, what made me pursue that route.
So now let's do blockchain 101.
Right.
For those of us who have no idea what this is, we just hear these big terms. I have a lot of younger friends who told me a long time ago, man, you got to get involved in Bitcoin. I was like, bro, I don't know. I don't even know. I have no idea what that is. But let's talk about, first of all, for our audience, what is blockchain technology and what makes it so different?
Okay, so the most simplistic way to put it, blockchain technology is a peer-to-peer digital ledger, right? So when you think about a ledger, right, it's a centralized database per se, sometimes handwritten, and now I guess we have tech in computers where if there's a transaction that goes by, it's recorded on this ledger, right? And a certain centralized institution controls all this. But what blockchain technology is, it's digital, of course, it's append only, and it's transparent to the fact that it's open to the public. So when transactions are added to the blockchain, it can be now verified by anyone because it's all public. And this brings the transparent matter of it to it. As well as what makes it different is it's append only. So meaning you can only add to it. You can never remove from it. So once the transaction is recorded and added on blockchain, it can never be altered. It can never be moved. And what makes it so secure, it's secure through cryptography. So for those who may be tech-based, or for those who don't, I'll break it down. Cryptography is pretty much the most secure methodologies in terms of any sort of software or technological data that would be stored or transferred. It's encrypted, right? So cryptography is behind encryption, and that's what secures a blockchain. And that's what makes it a little bit different than a traditional ledger. And for those who are accounting based would more so know this, because now with the transparency factor and the digital aspect of it is a little bit easier in terms of auditability, because now it's all in digital format. You don't necessarily have to go through books and books and papers. You could just enter the data and it can pull it right up and you can verify.
Whenever we talk about data and we talk about digital footprint and we talk about things that are online, etc., I always think there's always the capacity for failure. You know, I grew up in the old school. I'm a little old school where when you went to the bank, you took a bank book. Yeah. You know, but you walk into a bank and they say, "Oh, the system is down and you can't transact anymore." So, you know, when you think about all of this technology that is not physical, that people can't really touch, what we begin to ask the question then: how safe is it? So if something happens, you know, how safe is it? All this information is out there that I can't touch, that is not contained in a central place. People are going to naturally ask, well, how safe is all of this?
Okay, so when another aspect I forgot to mention what differentiates blockchain from traditional ledger-based databases, right, is the decentralization aspect of it. So as you said, in traditional more so, there's more centralized entity that controls this in a centralized database. So if that database is attacked or it's pretty much, you know, hacked or whatever, it would then more so be affected where the whole network goes down. But with blockchain, we're so special about it, the decentralization, meaning that there are databases worldwide, right? So even if you were to attack or hack one node, so what keeps these keeps the blockchain safe are nodes, and these are pretty much computers worldwide, right? And if you were to attack one of those, it would not affect the network because it's all decentralized. Okay, if you just attack that one, okay, we're still up and good. We're still good, and that's the whole advantage of blockchain technology and the decentralization factor with the combination of the encryption with cryptography, right? Now, in the digital aspect and from the traditional side, right, where are we, your age bracket, a little bit older, are more so used to tangible assets, right, things that they can touch, right, things that they can see, they can physically touch it. So if they could see it, if they could touch it, it makes sense, right? They can follow it, they can monitor it because it's right there. Sure. I can touch it. But with digital, in terms of blockchain technology and cryptocurrency, it's all intangible. You could see it to a point that you just see numbers or figures on a screen. You can't necessarily touch this currency. You can't necessarily touch like how you could touch paper money and stuff like that. This is all currency in digital format, right? And it's kind of a phenomenon in a sense for those who grew up more so in the era where everything is strictly physical. But for millennials and going forward, it's not that much to get our head wrapped around because we're more so used to the digital era, especially millennials, for the fact that we've experienced both sides of, okay, the traditional era where we had phones that you had to still had the thing and you had to turn it to
rotary phone.
Rotary phones.
Yeah, it's okay.
And then now look where we at to cell phones. Now you just touch. So we have the best of both worlds. And now the generation after millennials now, everything is digital now. If you was to pull up a rotary phone, they'll look at you like, what?
They have no idea how to use it.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's not so far-fetched for millennials in moving forward, but for the baby boomers and other generations, it's a little bit complex.
It takes us a little bit longer to understand. I accept that. The transactions themselves are very unique. Again, we are used to tangibles, but let's talk about the transactions and what makes the transactions in this technology so unique.
Okay, so with the transactions, right, it's all, okay, let me start off with blockchain technology, right? And then you have cryptocurrency. So blockchain technology is the underlying technology that transfers this digital value, aka cryptocurrency or digital assets, right? And what makes it unique is when someone was to pretty much authorize or begin a transaction, right? Say if Mike wanted to send a transaction to Jerome, that transaction would therefore be verified through my private key, and I would therefore have that transaction pretty much sent and requested to the blockchain, and then now be added to blocks, right? And more than one transaction are stored in these blocks. So that's what make up a block. One block consists upon multiple transactions. And now with these transactions, right, they're all connected. So now all you have these transactions in a block. So now here comes the chain part of it. Here comes the cryptography part of it, where now, so it also has to be contain what's called a nonce, which has a hash, right? So a hash pretty much is the function that allows for all these transactions, these blocks to be connected, so it can now be verified. So now you have block 1, and now you have the hash of block 1, which creates the chain, which can therefore allow for block 2 to be created. So that's where the whole blockchain comes into play.
Understood. Right. Okay, and let's get into now the whole cryptocurrency. We've talked about the technology, and I know, for instance, like Bitcoin is probably the most well-known. And explain to those who don't understand, where does this whole cryptocurrency come from, and using as an example Bitcoin.
So back in 2008, we had the financial crisis, right? And a major part of that was centralized entities controlling most of our money supply, our money flow, and pretty much all the funds that are more so dedicated worldwide, right? So Satoshi Nakamoto, a pseudo-anonymous person or group of people, male, female, we're not sure of, came up with the idea of, we need to have a financial system that is not solely controlled by centralized entities. So 2008, Satoshi Nakamoto created the Bitcoin white paper. And Bitcoin now was created more so to be a peer-to-peer, cashless digital system, right? And what Bitcoin incorporated was digital ledger technology. So digital ledger technology has been in existence since about the 90s and 2000s, but blockchain is just an iteration or more an advanced version of of digital ledger technology, right? And so again, Satoshi Nakamoto had the idea, I'm going to create a payment system, whereas no centralized entity, no government, nobody can say what I can and cannot do, and what I can and cannot, who I can and cannot transact with. So what this created now this payment system came along the lines now with no central entity controlling it, no central entity having a say and whatever you do with it. And what became so advantageous, because when you think about banks, right? Or you think about other financial institutions and what it takes for you to actually open a bank account, what it takes for you to have cross-border payments, or what it takes for you to pretty much do anything in terms of submitting documentation, passport information, bills, or address information, and so forth. And a lot of people in these remote places in the world, parts of Africa, even Latin American countries, they don't have these documentations. So what do? They just have their funds stored under the mattress. And what blockchain technology and Bitcoin has allowed for is for these type of people, all you need is an internet connection. And all you can do, you can send this asset and this value to whomever, whenever, and receive this as well too.
It certainly is changing the way that we transact and even making the world a smaller place. We have lots more to talk about. Stay tuned. We'll be back with more on the record right after this quick break. Every new season of On the Record, we push the limits, venture into unknown territory, take our cameras into places unseen before. We share the stories and experiences that affect us all. And now it's time for Season 5. On the Record, Thursdays at 8 p.m. on RTV, cable channel 212, and streaming live on Facebook. And we're back. Our topic tonight is a new economy for the next generation. My guest is Michael Clare. He's a certified blockchain expert. So this is probably one of the most high-tech conversations I've ever had on this show. But it's so important because we are moving in a new direction very quickly. And there are individuals in my generation behind, and maybe even younger, who have not kept pace and don't understand with, we hear these terms and we have no clue what they mean, and it always seems as if it's an arm's length. in terms of our arm's length away, in terms of our ability to participate. But, you talk about all of these things in our last segment, our ability to transact without the restrictions and regulations of some of the more established institutions. The question that comes to mind, though, for me is this all legal?
Yeah, so absolutely it is. You may or may not know, we as the Bahamas has taken a bold step forward in becoming digital currency and cryptocurrency agnostic in the release of our DARE legislation, the Digital Asset Registered Exchanges legislation, and it speaks to digital assets exchanges as well, and it speaks to those businesses who wish to conduct digital assets and cryptocurrency business, because you want that framework in place because it builds trust. People would feel a bit more comfortable transaction and using such digital assets when they understand that there's a legal framework in place. When the government said, okay, here's is okay, we're going to provide the guidelines and the provisions for you to utilize this tech, utilize the currency, and how to move forward the correct way with using these assets. So it's a very plus on that part.
Let's talk, though, about benefits in terms of the future. It seems that this is the way that we are moving in many ways. You talked about borderless payments, cashless transactions. Why is this the way of the future, and what are the benefits that will accrue to people who are involved even at this level?
So benefits of digital currencies and more so digitization is quite simple. We just had COVID, well, still kind of going through a pandemic, right? The world was shut down. Physical access, physical activity, face-to-face, person-to-person was pretty much non-existent for months' time, right? So it's kind of difficult to do anything in terms of would require paperwork or dollar note bills and stuff like that. But with digitization and with digital assets, all I need is my cell phone or a laptop, internet connection, and I can go move on with business. Smooth, seamless, and much more effective.
What are the risks involved, though? Anytime you talk about investing, anytime you talk about even trying to amass wealth, there is a level of risk.
Correct. So I would say in any investment, there's always a risk. In any investment, no matter be it real estate, stocks, bonds, there's always a risk. Now, so I'm finance based, and from a portfolio management approach, right? You have to utilize risk, right, in order to make money, right? Now, the appetite of your risk is all relative as a person. Now, when I talk about cryptocurrency as an investment, the risk is a bit more extreme as opposed to any other assets. So for example, cryptocurrency is the most volatile asset class known to man, right? So other assets, traditional assets, stocks, bonds, they kind of have some sort of stability in nature and some sort of way that you can kind of, some level of predictability, right? But cryptocurrency, as much as you can have a sharp increase, the same can be followed by a sharp decrease in the matter of hours or in days, right? But when you think about traditional methodologies in terms of investments like stocks and bonds, you can it doesn't necessarily move with that level of volatility. And if something like that happens, it's called a market anomaly. But market anomalies don't necessarily exist in cryptocurrencies because it's what's expected, right? But I would also warn those who are interested in getting in investing and and the trading of cryptocurrency and digital assets to understand that it's a very, very volatile market. And again, it's the most volatile asset class there is. And when I say volatility, meaning the price can have very sharp increases and very sharp decreases.
One of the things that I was able to find out about prior to the show, the use of things like smart contracts. And that's a part of the technology as well. I want our audience to sort of get a glimpse into that and how that can really change, how these smart contracts have the potential of really changing the way we do business.
So the most simplest way to view smart contracts. Okay, when you have a traditional contract, right, you have the terms of agreement written down on a piece of paper or typed up or whatever, and then each party signs, say, okay, I agree to do X, this and that, and I agree to that. You know what I'm saying? But what smart contracts allows for is to have these same agreements all encoded. stored on blockchain, right? And the way you sign is through your wallets, through your private keys, and pretty much it operates such that if A does not fulfill the obligation as signed and agreed upon with party B, so now A would not be able to receive the necessary funding or whatever was agreed upon via smart contracts. So it automatically executes, right? It removes the human intervention factor of it. So now, usually you have to go through law firms and go through that stuff, but it pretty much enforces within itself. So that's the gist of smart contracts. And smart contracts are pretty much the framework to build different applications, such as decentralized applications, which now you can go on over to decentralized finance. You go on to DAOs, decentralized autonomous organizations, and there's so much more that is built on smart contracts through the technology of blockchain.
What this also allows for is cross-border transactions. Mm-hmm. So as it stands now, if I want to transact something in the UK or Latin America, there's the exchange rate and all these things that I have to take into consideration. So my dollar here is not worth the dollar there, right, whether it's higher or lower. Does this affect that as well? Does it create a level playing field, or are we still faced with the same sort of, hindrances that we deal with when we talk about exchange rates?
So what digital assets and digital currency allows for, it pretty much removes all those third-party financial intermediaries. So like I was saying earlier, an example for me, before I really found out I can pay in crypto with my tuition, right? I used to go to the bank using my bank card, and they charged me fees because, again, my tuition was denominated in euros. So now I had to convert from B dollar to euros through the bank. They charged me, extra fees, right? But when I found I could pay with crypto, I just used to send my crypto over, and it was much more cheaper, it was faster, and it was a little bit more effective. So that's an example I can personally speak on that helped me. And as well as I remember I booked plane tickets with crypto before, and it was a little bit more cheaper too as well.
So which now raises another question, I guess. Should businesses now be looking at setting up cryptocurrency as an accepted form of payment?
I would most definitely recommend that. But again, it takes a level of education for them to really become a little bit more crypto agnostic. But what accepting cryptocurrency is for as a merchant, right? What it allows for is an additional form of payment. Now, I'm not saying if you're a business owner, to completely remove all other forms of payment. Because when you think about it, when you step into the store, you can pay with cash, you can pay with credit card, debit card, and also you have the mobile wallets such as Canoe, Mobius, and stuff like that. And now you can add cryptocurrency. And now that could allow for possibly a different clientele. You know what I'm saying? Because now cryptocurrency is worldwide. It's like, who's to say who you would have come in now and say, hey, you accept crypto? Okay, so now you can start paying with crypto. But again, what the issue may be is on the merchant side is that, okay, I have this crypto, what do I do with it now? See, and now it takes a level of education to understand that, hey, either you can convert this back to fiat, which is regular denominated cash, or you're pro crypto and you kind of want to hold it for your personal holdings as well. So,
or you can use it in a business or as a business to purchase things for your business from from wholesalers or people who provide services.
Because worldwide now, a lot of companies worldwide, a lot of wholesalers are now accepting crypto as a form of payment now. Mass adoption is spreading quickly and vastly. I remember back in the day, back in 2017, nobody wanted to touch crypto. Nobody was like, oh, this. But now, every day I look at the news, and every morning I study crypto, I look at the markets, I look at news, every day you see a new company accepting crypto or adding crypto to their balance sheet, every single morning. So it's spreading.
Just as a point of information, 2017 was not back in the day. It was not. I just want to put it out there. It was not that long ago. But I understand the point. Now, as an ordinary Bahamian, whether I'm a millennial or baby boomer or Gen X or Z or whatever, how do I get involved? If I know that I recognize that this is the way of the future, and I want to make sure that I'm a part of it, what do you recommend to people who don't know, have an interest, and want to get involved?
So, first thing I would say is to know. Get educated, learn. because you don't want to jump into something that you know nothing of. So, especially from an investment standpoint, right? The more you know, the more beneficial it is to you. So, for example, when you think about hedge funds on Wall Street and stuff like that, you know what the real fight for is for information, the access to information, to know. Because the more they know and the time frame of which they know, it's more beneficial in them in terms of profit, right? So, to bring it right back, for those who just want to get in, learn more about it. Learn more about cryptocurrency, learn more about blockchain before you enter into it, because when you see it, and it helps with the market psychological factor. So again, it being one of the most volatile asset classes, when you see that price go up and you happy, you're like, yeah. But when that price go down, you're like, you sad and mad, like, I know this was a scam. I know I shouldn't have gotten this piece of cash, you know? And I get those type of calls and messages every day, right? So I always say, learn, know what you're getting into, and then you can now take the step forward in terms of getting set up with a wallet, and then making a purchase of your own. And from an investment standpoint, you just have to remember that investment goes with a purpose. Don't just get in and say, oh, I won't make money. Okay, so how much money you want to make, right? Or how much money you're comfortable with and of attaining if the price goes in your favor and you're ready to get out, right? Or what percentage, right? But most people don't have that exit strategy, so they kind of stay in when the price goes up and they don't know when to get out. And now when the price go down, now they sad and they're crying. So it's all investment. It's all about having your personal goals, understand what you're comfortable with, and having your exit strategy.
Sounds good. Michael Clare, thank you very much. You have brought a lot of insight into a very gray and unknown area for many of us, so we thank you. This is certainly the way of the future. We've got lots more to talk about. My next guest is a 23-year-old CEO. Imagine that. Stay with us. On the Record is back right after this. Every new season of On the Record, we push the limits, venture into unknown territory, take our cameras into places unseen before. We share the stories and experiences that affect us all. And now it's time for Season 5. On the Record, Thursdays at 8 p.m. on RTV, cable channel 212, and streaming live on Facebook. Welcome back. You're watching On the Record. My next guest started making his mark in the digital space over a decade ago, which is about half of his lifespan, believe it or not. Having worked closely with a hedge fund manager in Canada and advisors for hedge funds out of New York and Asia, he's at the top of his game in many ways. He has also worked in the UK, trading with a top-tier firm. His goal is to educate more Bahamians on investing and wealth management. I'm happy to have on for this segment of our show founder and CEO of Securities, and Fernando. Welcome to On the Record, sir.
Welcome.
So you're 23 years old, correct?
Yes. Yeah.
Wow. Tell us about this incredible journey, and how is it that you found yourself on this particular path?
I would say it started more in high school. I have a rather funny story. When I was in school, I used to go to school and I had obviously a lot of friends. When you're in school, you just kind of going around lunchtime. I ate a lot because I was an athlete. I swam for the Bahamas. And I had this friend in particular, still my best friend to this day. And I remember that every single time I would either if I needed to, ask him for $1, he would always have to break $100. And I would always be there with my $10 or $5 trying to figure out how at 12, 13, this guy has to break $100 every single time. And, you know, he worked for his dad, and he was working in the mornings before school. And it tasked me with the idea every single weekend that I had to sit down and figure out, how do I make money? And I eventually stumbled upon trading, and I went into trading derivatives, futures, so international futures. So I trade more now today focused on European bonds and I guess US treasuries and also normal S&P 500, etc. And I was super interested in finance. And my whole entire life, since I was 13 years old, the main thing that I've always said was that I wanted to have my own trading firm. I wanted to become a hedge fund manager or somebody that completely changed the whole entire culture for finance here in the Bahamas and hopefully throughout the whole entire region.
You, as most high school, or as some high school graduates who went on to college, you started that path, and then some things changed for you.
Yeah, so very interesting enough. I mean, while I was in college, I got great opportunities, like to work at a fund in Canada, and I was able to work closely with the fund manager there, and at the time he was CEO, he still is, and I got into interesting conversation with him. I one day was talking to him on the phone, and we were talking about what was needed certification-wise, degrees-wise. Did I need my CFA? Did I need this? Did I need my Series 7? And all of these things that, certifications and degrees that they have in finance. And he said, you know what? The only thing you need in this industry is results. That's all that matters. And, at the time, I could honestly go out and say I was a complete nerd. My main goal at the time was to educate myself every single day. I had some interesting skills back then that I still utilize today. And I would just research and learn. And I was trading, researching, interning at the time. And I realized that what I was learning in a week, my school wasn't teaching me that in a year. So, and at 17, you start seeing that you're wasting resources and you want to be more challenged. And it wasn't even to the point where at the time I was, doing really well in school. I was, one of the top in all of my classes. But I realized that whatever was being taught to me was limiting me and my, opportunities and abilities to move further. So I wanted to take a different route, and that led me to taking a break and being able to actually dive into going internationally, getting the experience, working on the trading floors, working with hedge fund managers, working with advisors, and being able to bring back that knowledge, hopefully here, from my experiences. And, I always have the opportunity to go back to school, but I always thought it was weird because I made that decision by myself. I didn't consult my parents or consult anybody about, the fact that I wanted to leave school, but it was not necessarily me seeing it as a thing of leaving, but just an opportunity to kind of work on myself with the experience route. And if I wanted to, if I go back to college, and it's something that I think is very interesting, and when I go back to college, because I think I'll go in the next few years, I'll be going back with businesses, experience, a great network internationally, and I won't be going to school trying to figure out what I want to do. I'll know exactly what I want to do, be able to get my degree as soon as possible. I won't be there partying or worrying about girls or anything like that, getting distracted. It would just be the sole purpose of what I am there to do and to move on forward and kind of get back into what I'm doing now.
Now, one of the things from our conversation prior to this show that I know is that you are interested in getting people to think beyond the traditional forms of savings and investing monies in things that we think will bring us some yield at the end of the day. Mm-hmm. So I want to talk about your experience and learn with people amassing wealth versus a savings. I grew up at a time when your grandmother and your mother said, boy, put your money in the bank, make sure you get a good pension because you're going to need these things when you stop working, when you retire. But what I have seen and others have experienced is that you work, you save, you invest in this pension, you do these things, and then you get to that point in your life where you want to now stop working, you want to retire, but it's not enough to live. Mm. Or if you are living, it's barely living. And so the discussion moves now from how do we get away from just savings to now amassing wealth? And wealth, of course, being relative. I mean, we're all not going to be a Bill Gates, but wealth is being all relative.
I think everybody and when I say everybody, I mean every and anybody, even from the ages of 10 up per se. Well, like you said, it starts with education, but when you look at the savings route, which is a big culture here in our country, we have to start looking at the fact that we can also invest as well. Savings helps you to be secure, guaranteed, but no one has gotten rich from saving money ever, from my research and my studies and my understanding. Now, when you look at the fact of building wealth, you're now actually being out there, having your money compound, having your money diversified in different asset classes, and actually now saying, okay, well, if you're in a situation where your money is just making, I don't know what the banks do nowadays. I feel like RBC is doing nothing.
It's 0%.
0%.
Yeah.
If we're doing
others aren't much better. I mean, in terms of
but if we're doing say let's just say 1% on your money every single year, there's many different investments that you can make that can do well over 10% a year. In my opinion, that are very risk adverse. And then we just have to start looking more at an international market and not even just diversifying when it comes to like finance route of it. And there's different things you can do in terms of businesses and investing into, alternative investments that are now becoming very huge, farming and this and all these things that are now building up. But over time, these are things that can definitely, I guess, push out this whole entire savings culture. Because if we just have a bunch of people that are now constantly saving and saving and saving, we're putting monies into the bank, but it's not necessarily actually making the country more money, and it's not necessarily making our people more money, because you're just making 1% on your money, and 1% on $1,000 is nothing. And every single month, if the bank takes $5 or $6 or $7.50, and all these fees that they're now adding on, you're basically not making anything on your money. So we need to start, and I'm a big advocate for pushing towards more fintech solutions to be able to solve those problems for the everyday person and kind of change that whole entire culture.
Let's talk about that term you just used, fintech. What does that mean, and how is that changing the traditional, for most of us, how is it changing sort of the traditional face of finance and savings and investment?
Okay, so fintech is a rather simple thing. It's one of those things where it's basically you have your financial services now, lending money, banking, etc. It's just finding new ways to innovate in those fields by using technology. So creating apps, softwares to make those things more efficient, to, I guess, even have it in a way where you can make more money because there's less people that have to be paid or expenses from institutions. So for example, one of the big things that are now coming up in fintech is neobanks that don't particularly come off as more efficient as banks because they offer less services. But if you're looking at it from a standpoint where it's like, okay, we have this one thing that we know that we're really good at, and we're gonna focus on, say, lending money. Now you don't have the worries about walking in and having fees on when you swipe your cards anywhere, because there's no overhead.
So what is a neobank for people that don't know?
A neobank is a fully online bank. There's no type of personal interaction. There's no walking into anything. There's no overhead expenses. It's all software based. It's all AI or with a bunch of
AI being
algorithms,
okay,
which is just basically processes, basically the process of using computers to do certain tasks. Mm-hmm. But it's you have these infrastructures now, and it's something that I actually researched so that I can say it out there. If you're looking at some of the banks here, for example, we have, let's just say an average bank here may have $1 billion under management or $1 billion that they're holding at the bank. And if you're looking at some of the top neobanks around the world, the UK, the US, for the same employees that are tasked on softwares and just focusing on the end user, they're managing tens of billions of dollars, running more efficient tasks. You don't have to walk into the bank and wait for a check to clear. You can take a picture on your phone and your check goes straight to your account. And it's so many more things that allows a lot of the processes to be more efficient, because it's just focused on the things that the end users need. And fintech in general is just focused on creating a more financial services industry that's more focused on being more efficient, more up to date, more new age, more cutting edge, and constantly challenging the old banking system or the regular mutual fund or all these different things that we've had here for years. It's just adding a new way of saying, hey, that was the way of, like you guys mentioned before, this big brick phone. This is now the new iPhone 13 that's coming out.
How or are we keeping pace in this country with these advancements? And when I say keeping pace, are people taking advantage of, having access to, or even aware of some of these innovations?
In my opinion, I mean, like I said, I could only speak from my opinion. Not necessarily. If you look at how these things are utilized, my main problem with it is if you look at how these things are utilized around the world, it really helps the end customer. And in say a place like Indonesia, for example, there's one single app that holds, I think, 1.5% of the whole entire country's GDP. This app's worth like $40 billion. And it does every single thing for, I don't know, tens of millions. I think it's 150 million users or something like that. And if you're looking at how efficient that is compared to where we've been before, and you're looking at the type of things and problems that these apps solve or these softwares solve, I think we still have a lot of problems here that we're not really, addressing. And if there were more people diving into the software companies or creating apps to solve a lot more problems and people using them, and focusing on the fact that we should be now creating these apps and softwares for the everyday person, then we would be able to move forward. But a big step in the Bahamas that we miss is the education part.
And then we're going to take our last break in the show. If you are watching tonight and you're not quite sure what we're doing, we're talking about a new economy, specifically for the next generation. This is On the Record. We are back right after this. Every new season of On the Record, we push the limits, venture into unknown territory, take our cameras into places unseen before. We share the stories and experiences that affect us all. And now it's time for Season 5. On the Record, Thursdays at 8 p.m. on RTV, cable channel 212, and streaming live on Facebook. And welcome back. Our topic tonight, a new economy for the next generation. I am joined by founder and CEO of Okoff Securities, and then Fernando. And then let's talk about why you've decided to focus, as you have said, on teaching Bahamians how to invest and to grow wealth. Why is that important to you?
I always kind of look back at my situation. When I was first starting off, finding information was very hard. So initially, when I got started, I had to literally watch YouTube videos, and I had to go online. Then I would buy the books, and I was a kid. Luckily, my parents supported what I wanted to do, and my happiness was towards finance. So, but as I went on and I got deeper into everything, and I started to even recently now be more way at an institutional level when it comes to trading. Internationally, that right there is a very expensive thing to get into. And I say it from my personal experience of knowing how much it costs to even learn about the things that I've learned about, and how much I spent to go to certain places and get the information, and the hours that I've put in to build up all the notes that I have and all of these things. Now, the thing is about it is just like, it's one big thing for me as a young man in our country is, we have this way of thinking where it's like, it's about ourselves. Interesting enough, I mean, we live in a beautiful country. It's almost, it's paradise, right? But what we fail to realize is unless we start uplifting everybody, the country will still stay in the same way that it's always been. It makes no sense for me to get to a point in life where I feel as if, 10 years from now I could drive around in my nice car, but I have to say, okay, I'm worrying about this or I'm worrying about that. In reality, that just comes with, we look at it from a way where there's a lot of people in our country that just worry about themselves. And in order to lead, you have to lead everybody. You have to be able to go down and say, hey, look, I know that you don't have this knowledge, and I want to take you there. And finance is one of the things where not just Bahamians, but minorities as a whole have never been taught or learned.
Why do you think that is?
I think it's one of those, I mean, if I look at, like you said, like being in London, right? I was on a trading floor, maybe no women, but about 70 guys. I was the only black person.
Oh.
And I think it's more of one of those things where it's like, we're taught to, like you said, to save. We're taught to save, we're taught to be safe. We're not taught a lot of times to take risk in the ways that other people have learned to take risk. It was very interesting to me to see other young guys there, my age, that are making tens of millions of dollars a year trading in finance, their specific asset classes, like as in personal money, right? But those guys are always taught, like, look, you could do this. You know what I mean? Here's the information. They have programs there that they were telling me about where you can actually start at 17, and they have it where you can come during college, during the summers. You can come there and work on internships and learn for like 2 months about all the different type of strategies they have, how they trade central bank news and all these different things. But we're not necessarily open. We're pushed the route of education in our culture, like go get educated. But we're not pushed in the right direction. I think that we need to change the way and our approach to education with the new generation that's coming up.
And financial education, eh?
Yeah, financial education. I mean, like you said, learning about finance and then moving into finance, you learn how basically you make money from the end user. That's one of the biggest secrets in finance is how to make money from the end user, right? And one of the biggest things that we talk about is telling people to save. You tell people to save because you're basically putting them down, you're shielding them. You're saying, all right, go and get the 1%, go and get the 1% a year, and then you need to come to me if you feel like you need to make money. And I think that obviously that's how finance is. When you have to let somebody else manage your money because you want them to invest because they have more knowledge than you. But we're in a world now, in a space now that even the pandemic showed us that sometimes all we have is ourselves. So for me, moving forward from that, I've always wanted to, since I was a kid, because I said it was hard for me, and I know how much money I spent doing it, and the average person can't spend that much money to get the knowledge that I was able to get over the years. I want to be able to now get the average person to say, hey, this is how you trade this. This is what you invest in. This is how you structure these deals if you want to get into car rentals or this or anything. And just get the average person to understand, look, we can't make one person can't be good for the country. The whole entire country has to be good. So you have to impact more lives instead of impacting 10. It's not going to make us a better country.
Definitely a good stance. You are founder and CEO of Ocock Securities, correct?
Yes.
Tell me a little bit about the firm and what it is that you're hoping to achieve through this?
Well, I am hoping to change the route that's traditionally seen here in our country, where the standard for investing is focused on a certain class of people. I am hoping to actually, focus on behemoths, not necessarily take on foreign clients and try to get this guy over here for $10 million, $20 million. Obviously, down the line, it'd be a part of the business that you would grow into that. But my main focus over the first few years of me starting up my firm at 23 would definitely be to focus on behemoths and giving opportunities to behemoths. And like you said, with the financial education, being able to focus on the average person.
That differs a lot from the more established financial institutions that really have a minimum in terms of your worth in order for them to even take you on as a client, eh?
Well, I mean, people are people. Like at the end of the day, we're all human, and I always say in life it's not about what you have, it's about what you do. I'm more interested in knowing who the people are who I can help change their lives, rather than saying, okay, this person is just a number. I mean, many people look at people like numbers. Oh, you have this car, you have this house, you have this thing, but in reality, all of that can be lost in seconds.
When people think about investing and when they think about wealth, most people think, I'm barely surviving. Mm-hmm. I'm living from paycheck to paycheck or from month to month or whatever it is. And that always seems something that is unattainable, that's far away. When you think about investing, you think about Wall Street, or you think about, having hundreds of thousands of dollars to be able to invest. But that is not necessarily the case. What your approach is very different. So what do you say to those folks who say, listen, I live in day to day. I can't think about investing anything right now. I can't think about wealth right now when I'm just trying to survive.
I would say I would leave with a statistic. $5,000, just $5,000 in that. And it don't matter if you put $5 there, you put $50 there, $100 there, until you get to that $5,000. But $5,000 on 10% compounded over 40 years is $1 million+.
Repeat that? Just in case somebody missed it.
Okay, $5,000 at a 10% average, I guess, rate of return, compounding over 40 years is over $1 million. And if you start to look at things as, okay, I bought this phone for $1,000, and you think about I bought 5 iPhones over the last 10 years, that you might have had that $5,000 that just could have sat there for the next 40 years, but not necessarily maybe for you, but maybe for your kids or your grandkids. And we could start building wealth throughout generations, rather than saying, we need to it's gonna take $10 million to make some money. Well, obviously $10 million would make a lot of money for somebody that has $10 million, but we have to start opening our minds to knowing that with a small amount, over time, thinking long term, we can actually build wealth for ourselves.
Do you think, though, it's because people are looking at instant gratification and those instant riches right away?
Yes, but if we look at the average person that's like multi-millionaire, like it did not happen in 2 seconds or 2 days. So just like that, investing is the same thing. I mean, sometimes you have people that get very lucky, as we just had crypto on, one of those things where a lot of people have got a lot of money during that whole entire wave. But if you look at traditional investing and across the different asset classes, you're now talking about a longer time thing where it's like, I could say this though, the best thing to do is to start investing. And it doesn't necessarily need to be in, say, at a firm or whatever it may be. It can be finding different things that could produce cash flow for right now until you can get that money into some different type of investing. But we have to start being open to it, and it comes back down to, like I just said, financial education.
And you really represent to me the future of our country. You're still very young, and you've taken on such an incredible journey to be able to teach our people about investing in wealth, and that's really admirable. Your generation is certainly not content with the status quo. You all have, by your own definition, created, first of all, I think your own space in many ways, and you stepped out of the traditional. Other young people who may be watching this and thinking to themselves, I want to do something different, I want to step out, I want to make my own mark, I want to depart from the norm. What advice would you give them? You know, you've got a dream, or you've got a passion, or you've got a yearning. You want to do it differently, no matter what it is. What advice would you give to them?
The advice that I would give to somebody that is in a situation where, you know, they want to move on and want to get into something that they want to do or they really have a huge passion for, is almost like when you wake up every single day, you have a choice of working on your dream or working on something that's hopefully pushing you towards your dream, or just completely forgetting it behind. And the thing about it is, if you work on that thing that pushes it behind and you never get to touch your dream, no matter how much money you make, how far you get in life, or what you do, you'll always be able to look back at that and hate yourself for the fact that you did not at least try to do it. Anybody that's young, that has a passion, I would say the best time to do it now is in your 20s. And something that's incredible that we talked about, at my age, I hate to hear people in their 20s say, look, I'm saving money. You shouldn't be saving money. You should be either paying for educational things that will get you towards your passion or your purpose, or figuring out what that is, or building a business for yourself, or taking a risk. Because the best advice that I've ever gotten in my life was, look, I'm 23, and I am in a situation now where I manage people, I lead, and obviously it's a learning experience, but I'm learning more doing it than anything else. And if I fail, which is not an option for me, I know that tomorrow I can start something else.
Great advice. We're going to end there. Anand, thank you so very much. This has been an inspiring conversation. I wanted for this show to really delve into the future and what the future holds, but a lot of this is now as well. So thank you so very much. All the best to you in your endeavors. Good luck. You make us exceptionally proud for everything that you've been able to accomplish up to now. Folks, that's going to do it for this edition of On the Record. Special thanks to all of my guests tonight, as well as thanks to my technical and production team. I couldn't do it without you. And of course to you, the audience. Thank you so much. We'll see you next week. Same place, same time, right here on The Record.